A lot of people believe that frequencies are, 528 hertz is going to heal the DNA, the solfeggio suite. And, you look at David Hawkins' work, Power versus Force. And, when he passed, he already knew that his work was needing to be updated. The Christ consciousness at 1,000 hertz. I think when he passed, he said it was already 1,200 hertz. The eggs vibrating at 1,600 hertz. The more eggs that go onto the planet, the more that they're all increasing in power and efficacy. It's like a self-organizing system. They're all connected to the matrix of the energy of the planet. So the eggs seem to find their own location and they find their own egg guardians. And it's beautiful because I will tell you 99% of the people will say, well, the egg found me.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing. And I've really been looking forward to this, just that little charge that we just got right now, this expansive moment that we're having, just greeting each other, two incredible beings having a conversation. I want to welcome to the podcast a sound and light expert in, among many other things, about a conscious creator and just helping people remember who they are through an insight of some incredible tools. I want to welcome to the podcast, Gail Lynn. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, that we're just oscillating in a charge right now, just realizing how amazing it is. And that's what we're speaking of. We're talking about the fundamentals of what this reality is constructed of, which is energy. And it all comes from that origin, that source point, that light and sound. And so I would love for you to just share a little bit with the audience about how you got here
today. Well, I dropped in in a sole contract into Detroit, Michigan on October 28th, 1970. And that's where the journey started. The sole contract with my mom was to start to be experiencing this humanness in the womb. So I do believe that my mom kind of blamed her pregnancy on my dad, but I really wasn't my dad's child. So in the womb, my mom was harboring that guilt, shame, probably anger, fear. And I only know my dad, and it's okay. The soul contract was with him as well. But the guy that I think got her pregnant was like, peace out. I don't want to have kids. And she's like, oh, crap, it's your kid. So I think that's what happened. So it all started there. And I didn't, obviously didn't know what the life was going to be like. At 4 years old, I experienced a diagnosis of chronic asthma. I picked some dandelions for my teacher. And then the next thing I know, I'm in the emergency room. I can't breathe. I'm trying to pull the window open of the car and trying to breathe. My mom's rushing me to the hospital. I'm getting poked and prodded every which way. So another, experience. Then at 7 years old, the doctors told me, I really wanted to play softball. I was playing that little T-ball. You know how the little kids hit it off the ball. And the doctor said, you're never going to play softball. That's when I realized no one tells me what to do and no one tells me what my potential is and no one gets to put any kind of limitations on me. And so I showed them because I played softball for 30 years without an inhaler. So there you go. When I was 17, I started working for a doctor's office, realized the corruption of the medical system when I was working for doctors that were giving out diet pills to older women and looking through their chart, realizing after 20 years, they've gained weight and only to find out they were giving them speed and selling them speed. I got fired from that job because I was playing doctor and telling them this was wrong and this wasn't how the medical system should help people, giving them speed. So I got fired from that job. And then my 20s got real interesting. Just meeting biologists, from finding that I had like chronic yeast infections and realizing that our bodies don't do well with Mountain Dew, Snickers bars, and pasta 3 times a day. So trying to figure this all out, but the universe kept presenting this stuff. And then, it got real crazy. Had somebody hold a gun to my head. I almost got kidnapped. Just things got real crazy. But the guy that almost kidnapped me, it was on a date, and he apparently had some security clearance with NASA. And we were talking about, if we went to the moon, how come we never went back? And here I was probably 22, maybe. And he was probably 40. I was always attracted to older guys because at age 14, I was molested by the priest of the Catholic Church. So 34 years, older gentleman was my first sexual experience. And so this guy, he's talking about going to the moon. And I said, well, yeah, smart ass, me. Well, if we went, how come we didn't go back? And he said, well, we destroyed a bunch of their dust mites and we left all our equipment there, and they told us, don't come back. So then, it's always, somebody always came to me with an experience of, let's expand Gail's mind. Let's drop this person into her life right now, and let's expand her mind a little more. And so this has been happening to me my whole life. I love my life. I wouldn't want to be anybody else. Freaking love my life. And then the guy was trying to shove me in his car, but he also gave me a book, Many Lives, Many Masters. I figured if I did go in his car, I would never be seen again. So I kind of, ducked out and took the book and never saw him again. But I think these people come into our lives. Maybe there was a fork in the road. Maybe there was a part where I didn't want to be here anymore. So maybe there was a soul contract and I had to make that decision. Snap. Am I going to leave the planet now or not? And it's just really interesting, the possibilities and the free will that we have. So coming up to now 28 years old, and then going to the Monroe Institute to have out-of-body experiences, and really realizing that some people in my life were in my life before, and then starting to realize that past lives do exist, and that you come back and have these same experiences with these soul beings over and over again until you learn the lessons. Well, as you can only imagine, I didn't get along with my mom too well because of all that energy that we harbored between each other in the womb. And I went to a spiritual counselor, psychic, and he said, why do you keep coming back with the same souls over and over? I said, huh? And he said, your mom and dad, you keep having the same role with them. You were a little girl in China. Your dad was an alcoholic. I'm like, he's an alcoholic in this lifetime. Interesting. He said, well, you keep doing this over and over with them. I said, okay, that's it. Tell me how to get rid of them forever. I don't want to deal with them ever again. And so he says to me, put a picture of your mom up and tell her you love her every day. I said, I can't do that. I can't. I told him, I said, I'll throw up. Here I'm in my 20s, right? I said, I'll throw up. And I said, if I have to get rid of them and this is how I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Interesting how 1,200 miles away, me sending love to my mother's picture changed everything. We fixed our relationship. By the time she passed away, we were best of friends, and I would be honored to come and do this with her again. And my dad as well. I understood his alcoholism, and I understood why. I always was trying to, why did you drink, Dad? Why did you drink? And he said, honey, I had a 7th grade education, and I had to support a family with 3 kids and a wife. So I had to work in the automotive business, but my dad was so much like me. He was an inventor. He was a creative guy, but yet he was screwing in the same screw every day, hammering the same nail every day on the line, 30 years, working in an asbestos plant, and died of mesothelioma, which was a misdiagnosis and a medical error. So every day was like something new for me. And so then in my 30s, I was in Peru. I was supposed to have a ayahuasca experience. I show up in Peru a week after my husband was there. And he comes to me and says, I want a divorce. I fell in love with the assistant tour guide. Like, am I living in the Twilight Zone? What is the lesson here now, Gail? And this girl was telling me, can you tell him how much I love him? Because she only spoke Spanish. He only spoke English. And I had just finished 3 semesters of Spanish because we were going to Peru. So I'm like, he's El Jefe. And she's like, oh, no, I'm El Jefe. I go, well, then you work that out with him. So she's sleeping with him. The tour guide's like, hey, why don't you come sleep with me? And I'm like, what is going on here? But he was very magical. And I never got to do the ayahuasca, as you can only imagine. That would have been a really bad trip had I done it in that state of mind. So fortunately, the tour guide he said, I'm not letting you do this. When I was upset, because that's what I went there to do that. But yet expanded my mind so much more and realized how magical people can be. I mean, literally, I hope your audience doesn't get upset with this statement, but he put his hand on my hand in a bus and I had an orgasm.
Yeah.
Where did this power come from? That's not how my body works. Somebody can't just put their hand on me and that happens. So that's when I started seeing, okay, in my 30s, a lot of things opened up. I watched one of the shaman's assistants pick up fire. Now, everybody else was tripping out because I didn't get to do the ayahuasca or the mushrooms or anything. And I'm looking at everybody else and they're all tripping out, seeing pink elephants. I'm watching a guy pick up fire from the bottom of a fire pit, light his cigarette, and very casually put it back in the fire. I'm looking at everybody. I don't think they saw it, but it was the experience I needed to have to realize that we are powerful, magical beings and anything is possible. So going to then turning 37, almost died. This is where sound and light therapy comes in. I had severe cardiovascular stress after 3 careers, automotive engineer, telecom, international business, and then Hollywood. And it about killed me. So the universe presents to me a mentor that is of sound and light. He had a chamber, like a light box. And within a weekend of sessions, my heart rate variability test was normal. The cardiovascular stress was gone. That's when my engineering mind says, okay, now I got to figure this out. And this guy was the consciousness of Edgar Cayce, for sure. He could see transparent through the body. And as Edgar Cayce stated at the end of his life, if somebody could bring together spiritual forces of sound, spiritual forces of light, it'd be a great modality for the future. He also said he regretted that he couldn't observe his own readings because he was the sleeping prophet. He had to be asleep to be able to do the readings, and someone had to record it while he was sleeping. So this guy comes in and really creates this light box, and he has this gift while he's awake. Becomes my mentor for a while, abuses his power, and then I ultimately watched how he was less and less accurate on being able to see through the body and diagnose people, because then I realized that you can misuse your power. You can really have these gifts and have them taken away by the universe. So this is kind of now how my life's been shaped. And then I came up with the idea of the egg through Edgar Cayce's work, Wilhelm Reich, Royal Rife, Nikola Tesla, and then the sacred geometry of the golden ratio, and then the shape of the egg, being the womb space, being that you are rebirthing and you're finding your perfection. So the egg is such a beautiful place to be free of all the trauma, all the crap that the universe and the society tells you can't do. I should say more society. You can't do this. Don't cry. Don't do this. Don't do that. You're not powerful. And so the egg empowers you. Right in the middle of going into production with the egg, my dad passes away from mesothelioma, diagnosis COPD. And then 11 weeks later, my mom has a brain aneurysm that she manifested because she says, nobody cares about me. Nobody needs me. Now that your dad's gone, I have nothing. And she manifests a brain aneurysm and dies. What that did was give me freedom. And I don't mean to be cold, but they were such an influence in my head. You can't do this. Don't try to buy steaks with hamburger money. You'll never amount to anything. Just work in automotive and get a pension. And so that freed me. And I have a better relationship with them now that they've passed than I did when they were alive. And I loved them while they were alive. When they passed, we had resolved all these issues. So I realized that now I got to go on. You lose your both parents, and I'm going into production in the egg. I can't let that energy spill over into the egg, but I got to keep going. People are wanting to buy these. People want to, try them out. Now we have over 200 eggs in 12 or 14 countries. And it's really bringing people into where they can tune into their higher self. They can release that trauma, and they can really understand who they are as soul beings. So there's my little rant. That brings me up to today.
Woo! Whoa! This is awesome. No, this is amazing. You look at your reality, and part of a seeker is you're looking for the knowing, and that knowing comes in your own absolute truth that is realized by your journey. No one else. This is your truth, and that charge you and I got right now is a reality of that. And so, the seeking is always the exciting part. The seeking is always the exciting part, to develop a belief system that validates a knowing that is from the experiencer. And so this is an incredible journey, and you just got started, my friend. We just got started. Your journey has just started. Forget about the limitations of a human's timeline. This is just the beginning, and it's so exciting to realize that, and being that creator and offering people solutions with this technology. Why don't you share with us a little bit more about how that really works on the experiencer?
Absolutely. A lot of people believe that frequencies are, 528 hertz is going to heal the DNA, the solfeggio suite. And, you look at David Hawkins' work, Power versus Force. And, when he passed, he already knew that his work was needing to be updated. The Christ consciousness at 1,000 hertz. I think when he passed, he said it was already 1,200 hertz. The eggs vibrating at 1,600 hertz. The more eggs that go onto the planet, the more that they're all increasing in power and efficacy. It's like a self-organizing system. They're all connected to the matrix of the energy of the planet. So the eggs seem to find their own location, and they find their own egg guardians. And it's beautiful, because I will tell you, 99% of the people will say, well, the egg found me. And after hearing this over and over and over again, I know that's what's happening. And the eggs told me they would find their owners, they would take care of themselves. But this engineering girl from Detroit was like, y'all are crazy. This is a large wooden egg. How is it going to find things? How is it going to? And overall, I will tell you, they speak to me. They tell me what music they need. So I use the waveforms of instruments. I look at the flute and the waveform of the flute and how it affects the liver. The piano waveform affecting the autonomic nervous system. The drumming affecting building the immune system. And with the root chakra, that very primordial boom, 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 root chakra. So I combine those. My latest creation is called When Nature Sings. It's drumming and trumpet. I hire musicians with a high heart energy that want to help people to heal, want to heal the planet. But now the eggs are expanding into, let's hydrate the client with this piece, but let's also hydrate the microbes on the land. And that blew my mind, because I didn't realize how much the land is affected by the egg being there. And so part of our chronic dehydration is the microbes are dehydrated on the planet. So duh. So I create pieces this way. And then when I listen to them, titles come to me. The colors that they invoke are coming to me. And the chakras and organs they're affecting are showing up in my body. So then I write up a song sheet and say, this is what this piece is doing. This is what it's helping to do. And this is the intention of the piece. And then the colors come in. So it's the colors associated with the chakras. We got Eastern medicine, we got Western medicine. And so I can speak to it as the autonomic nervous system, or I can speak to it as it's galactic beings that are, running the egg, or I can speak to it different people. You talk differently too. But the colors associated with the chakras. So if you're going to be on like drumming and red light, you're going to help with any kind of root chakra imbalances, which could be teeth issues, eye issues, ear issues, knee, foot issues, moving forward, survival kind of stuff. But there's also red light you don't want to use if somebody has high blood pressure. So the manual that I've written is pretty comprehensive with a cheat sheet, and everything is safe. We don't go over 90 decibels. We do not use MP3 files because MP3 files are very cold and clinical and compressed. And they're actually taking away the integrity of the music that's intended by the musician. So we only use the WAV files, which are the greatest creation. And I'll give you one of the examples. If your nervous system is listening to an MP3 file and you're thinking in binary code, 1001001101, the nervous system on an MP3 file is going, what was that? Now, how many seconds did I take to tell you that? Now the nervous system has lost some of the other music because it's thinking, was that a 1? No, that was a 0. No, maybe that was a 1. With a WAV file, it's like 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. I mean, they know immediately what that is. And so it's really brilliant. But some people I have to laugh at or chuckle because they haven't learned yet that an MP3 file at 528 hertz really isn't 528 hertz. However, if there's a placebo effect and it helps you because you think it helps you, then yay. So what I created with the egg was it's all made out of wood. There's no electronics like screens and EMFs inside there. It acts as a Faraday cage. There is a subwoofer inside with speakers, but we're getting no EMFs from the tri-field EMF meter. On the outside, you have the music player, the amplifier, and yes, you are definitely getting EMFs from it on the outside. So I've created something with the sacred geometry of it that is something beautiful. And I think nature knows as well, because the centers that have been in Maui, Fort Myers, the Marshall fires in Colorado, there were centers in all those locations that totally survived. It was like the fire went around it, the floods went around it, the hurricanes went around it, a tornado in Garland, Texas just went around the building, and the building was still standing in that same parking lot where another building was leveled. So something's going on with it that's very magical. And I think that they call myself on this, they call me the inventor on this 3D earth plane, but I'm not the inventor. It came through me. And that's why I realized I'm on the planet and I needed to be an engineer and in international business and in Hollywood to be here today.
Woo! This is really powerful. I mean, I deeply understand this. I use resonance frequency, which in turn is a vibration, which is energy. I use that 24/7, 365. And, I teach people how to create the infrastructure so they can be their own magical realization at using the energetic potential. That's why Taoism, alchemy is so sexy for many people. They want the foundation. They want to understand. Like your realization is so profound. And there's more and more people that are starting to understand that, there are things that are going on in my life that there are no coincidences. But it sometimes doesn't hit them over the head until, there might be a certain, decade of their realized reality. And they're like, why didn't I discover this when I was 5 or 10 or 15? Or it doesn't matter. You're getting what you need right here, right now. It's absolutely perfection now. And so when people are absent of that emotional content, absent of, envy, jealousy, desire, these are things that are sort of like part of the human condition, then all of a sudden you can just be in this present moment and use incredible tools like the ones that, as you said, your guidance, past life, you're channeling information from, a source that is highly, conscious, that it's able to translate into this 3D reality and be so potent and powerful. And, that's where ritual comes in. This is where the people get misled and misguided by being absent of that. There's this whole, and you can appreciate both sides, the intellect and the intuitive, right? And we're looking for that center point, the vesico, what we call within Taoism, we call it Wu Ji, accessing the mother. And so that realized a Taoist seeker is observing and on the path of realizing that the sum of all things is what we call the bellows. So we are contracting and expanding all the time. That's it. And you are all things and nothing at the same time. And now then you go to the path of, okay, well, man is not like that. Humanness is not like that. Limited. This human condition, you look back at yourself in the mirror with an identity, is the very limitation and the unraveling of your journey in of itself. Having incredible tools like the one that you were given the guidance to create on this planet Earth is what helps people remember. And when they start remembering, they have these epiphanies. The lines are no longer blurred. They're one. And you become one, and you come back to that remembrance and that visceral kinesthetic response that comes from realigning all things. You know, it's so powerful. And it's an interesting point you brought up, the Hawkins thing. I never really, for me personally, and I've had this conversation with many people, first of all, people didn't really understand he was talking in hertz. It's like, oh, no, that's just state. And I'm like, well, the state has to be measured by something. It's like 500 is this, 700 is that, 1,000 is that. Now, to my own admission, I witness very easily within 100 to 400 hertz when I'm channeling. I measure my brain waves. It's all 100% gamma, baby. Gamma, lambda, whatever you want to make it up. The higher the frequency, just make up a goobity goop, whatever the level is. I mean, that's literally what people are. They're pulling these names out of nowhere to identify, but within 100 to 400, I mean, the second I'm there, I know I've been doing this a long time in the driver's seat of over 30 years, but that instantly I witnessed physical healing. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter what it is. If you want to give me an example, I could give you thousands of examples of physical healing that blow your mind because it doesn't seem real. But just to your own admission earlier, anything is possible as far as I'm concerned. That's what I'm here to witness. I'm the facilitator to just help people remember who they are and bring that into their reality. And that imprinting, like basically what, you know, within the Taoist alchemy, we use Taoist magic, and that's founded in correlating the mirroring effects of the constellation, the universe. And we lay grids, and we perform star stepping and specific ritual that creates and emulates the universe within the planet Earth. And of course, the old you're a micro of a macro, which is what we always talk about. You know, some you know, green behind the ears novices will cut their teeth on some simplistic Taoist rituals that have been sort of bastardized in the Western world, like, for example, microcosmic orbit. And so that's a very basic entry-level meditation that evokes sort of what some people would consider a Kundalini experience. Personally, I teach people the infinite Wuji body, and that just, it polarizes, it overshadows any Kundalini, whatever you want to call it. And you just go off to the races. You're
Well, you're right. We name all this stuff, you know, we have all alpha, data, theta, delta, you know, just name it, beta, whatever. But what if we had to unlearn everything that we know? And what if there wasn't any language, because trying to define it in a language actually negates it? And so that's what, you know, when I went to the Monroe Institute, the binaural beats, it didn't really resonate with me. I'm like, no, don't force my brain to come into balance when it needs to be in the right for a while, and it needs to stay in the left and bounce to the right. I don't want you forcing my brain. So we don't use the binaural beats in the egg, because why would I want to force the brain into doing something that wasn't natural? So I try to use it more naturally, where the egg energy interacts with the human energy and finds the imperfections and really shows you where you need to work. And a lot of people will say, oh my gosh, I was shown this, or I saw this, or I experienced that, or I painted this after I had my egg session, or I wrote this book, you know, after 10 egg sessions, I wrote this beautiful book. that's very high energy and high vibe. And I really feel like that was part of the soul contract with my dad is humility. You know, he was an automotive worker, but he was also probably one of the most conscious, awake spiritual people that I've ever met, even though I thought he can't spell, his grammar sucks. You know, he's just the 7th grade educated guy. But when he passed, and even during his life, he would, if somebody smacked him in the face, he would say, hit me on the other side. And people thought he was a sissy, but really he was more evolved, and he was very non-judgmental. He was very, he was such a beautiful soul. And when he passed, it was so easy for him to just fly. He was done. He was like, peace out. You know, I know what I need to do. I know where I am. And it was just really interesting to see him in the physical form and how I judged him, and then to see his spirit. And I was like, wow, he was a really old soul. But he came in to have this experience and to teach us humility. And he always said, you know, the CEO of a company doesn't put his pants on any different than the garbage man. Whether you are scraping gum off the sidewalk or you're running a business, you do that with pride, and you do your job, and you do it 100%. And so that was the work ethic that I received from my dad.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a good point, and I mean, he makes a good point, and I think that that's something that you and I have a similar type of personality, in the sense of I'm a no nonsense kind of guy. I'm an 80s fanatic, so I'll take the Pepsi challenge with anyone on this stuff, and I will show me. You know what I'm saying? And so all this kind of stuff is there's the whirlwind of exposure that I've had over the last 12 months of being in social media is crazy. And I thought there were egos in the health and fitness industry, but no. Well, this place is on steroids. And the worst part about it is there's people that they still believe in hope, and they're still seeking. And there's a lot of people that are just full of the old proverbial shit. And they can't bring it, but they want you to just pander to their association with a group. I'm highly evolved. I've got the most views on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. And it's disheartening. And so when you come across incredible beings like yourself that can show someone how to remember and give them the tools to help them do that, now we're talking.
Well, you're right. I've been hurt by more healers than I want to admit, but your conversation with Mara, I think if anybody that's listening to this hasn't watched that one, you have to watch that one. Mara and you had a beautiful dialogue talking about healers that harm, and you know, sometimes they don't want to do that, or they don't go into the business to do that. But you know, when you're going through a divorce and you're working on people and you're flicking needles into them and acupuncture, and you're flicking your energy into them, and your sadness, your anger, your fear, your financial status, and then people are unsuspecting and they don't know when they come out of that session, this isn't my emotion. They don't know that unless you're, you know, more evolved and you can tune into your emotions and say, I don't think that's mine. And so I had to learn that as well and try to teach it, but also the energy that's in the egg and any invention of a machine, people's energy is in that. So you really need to look at who invented this, who are they, do your research on them, and be discerning, because you're going to be picking up their energy. And so that's what I'm trying to teach people, even with supplements. I pendulum. I learned radiesthesia from a doctor that's in my town, and she's brilliant. And I also learned controlled remote viewing from her, and she does it with integrity. And so we pendulum the company, the integrity of the company, the integrity of the owner of the company, and to test products. I'm not going to put things into my body that, now don't get me wrong, I eat chocolate. You know, I go to fast food once in a while because I like it. But for the most part, I don't want to put things into my body that have a negative energy. I want to keep that energy high. And I've witnessed a lot of healers that they harm people. And what you and Mara talked about was just such a brilliant conversation. on how there's different types of healers, and there's these gurus that are just there to take your money and to get you to listen to them. And I think I've always studied so many, like I mentioned, Edgar Cayce and Royal Rife. There's also Wayne Dyer and Kay Gardner for the music. That I've read 200 books. And I went to college for 13 years trying to get an education until I realized I just need to get the stupid piece of paper and be done, because I'm not learning anything that I need to know. So then on my own read 200 books. So yes, if you will, I bought my degree. It's not from Harvard. So I bought my PhD in philosophy just to get out of there and move on with what was important to me. And this other stuff was just nonsense, what I was learning, and outdated books and old information and horrible teachers. And so I wanted to really be of integrity and build this business around, humility and integrity. And it's hard because I'm still a human being and I still have ego. But it's interesting to watch some of these healers who think they're all that, and they're not at all.
Yeah. I mean, it happens more often than not. I mean, being in this space for over 30 years, it's interesting watching it. 30 years ago, if someone came to me with a psychotic episode, and I probably had that story, I mentioned it with her, it would be loss of hope and potential being committed to some type of like asylum, some sort of psycho ward where you're being examined as off center. Yet there's a disturbance, there's a frequency, and there's an evidence of this energetic potential that can come in the form of an entity and other things. And this is what presents itself. And when you're around someone that understands that and can actually see it and help you resolve those energies, this is what's the most important thing. But people play with a lot of this stuff. They get all excited and, I can see grandma and I heard a voice. And I think this is the spark of your seeking. Yet the most important thing, in my opinion, and why I gravitate, even though instantaneously I came across this stuff, like literally with, I remembered who I was 30 years ago, but the skills that I required, I just developed these skills as a priest to share this alchemy with others and give them the ability to remember themselves. Self-evident stuff, so important that you remember who you are, that you return, that you have a knowing, not me. My knowing is not your knowing. Your knowing is not their knowing. That's the most important thing. Realize that truth is your truth and the most important thing. And so many people get pigeonholed with this sort of Hollywood version of what it's supposed to be, and then they never discover it themselves. So they're always looking for answers from someone else rather than realizing they have it within them. And right inside. And then, what I think is really important is to develop your sensory perception so that it is equal. So you're not sort of, I always use this analogy. It's like, well, I turn the lights off and hand you a pile of what you don't realize is, dog shit. And you think you're playing with like, what do my kids play with? Like putty or something like that. And when I turn the lights on, you go, holy shit, it's dog shit. Yes, this is the potential. This is the problem. It's like, so you need to be able to identify it yourself. It's really important. And I really love the fact that you realize, and the charge you and I are getting right now is like a validation of that, a realization of that. And so it's so important to be able to see these things. And for me, just through my own sensory perception development, I see it, I see the energy, then I feel it. If I choose to, whatever, it's about a mastery of yourself so that you can actually help and raise the conscious collective, which a dear friend of mine, James Tunney, a scholar from Ireland, he refers to it as the spiritual consciousness, because there is this spiritual war that a lot of people don't realize is going on to separate you from yourself. And you kind of just, well, what does that mean? It's called the interweb. It's called social media. It's called everything digital. You are being removed from the story. You're when the music stops, you will not have a chair. You need to understand that this is taking place, and it may be benign to you, and you realize that it's not, what's the big deal? Social media. The amount of friends that I've had that I said, don't get on social media. And now I'm looking at it going, I'm on social media. But they went to a point where there's no return. They revealed their lives. They revealed every little last piece of themselves. And all it is an accumulation of data. It's an accumulation of data of how to manipulate you. And so the simple things like when Gail was just talking about the pendulum, a lot of people, I teach people what they call body dowsing, which is taking it to a different level. We're not using like dowsing forks. I use your body. I teach you how to really resonate and identify the ideomotor response that is you as a divine tool. And you can basically use it at will to identify power centers, vortices, and of course, imprint. And that part is where there's a divine level of resonance that Gail's putting into her eggs that is not of this world. And so that's perfection. It comes back to perfection. And that's why people are so blown away when they have an experience, because it resets them. It gets them to remember. And that charge that we're having, that expansiveness, is a validation. And I'm pretty sure even when you were given an invitation, you're probably you used the pendulum on me and watched a couple of videos and thought, oh, this guy's not full of shit. Actually, I want to have a conversation with him.
I was actually excited. I said, I don't get excited about a lot of them because I just, it's just, I don't like hearing my own story over and over and over again. But so I try to tell the story, with a little more detail here and there. And I knew we had more time than 20 minutes. Some of them are 20 minutes, some are 30 minutes, some are an hour, and they have a hard cutoff time. And so I thought, this podcast, I've never started with in the womb. So I started that one, with you, because I knew I had the time to tell that exact story. And, I think part of the problem with society is we're taught what to think, not how to think in school. And that's what I realized I needed to get out of school, because it disconnected, me from my spiritual, being, because it was so, I don't even know what word. I don't even know if there's a word for what I feel going to the education system. It's so brainwashing. It's so it didn't feel good at all. And so I want to learn how to think. I don't want to be told what to think. And maybe that's why I was born a Scorpio, and I was born with a stellium in Scorpio, and I'm stubborn, and I'm, perfectionist, and I'm type A. And I just want to see everybody be in abundance, because I'm getting tired of, oh, Gail, you can't say on your website that it harmonizes stress and anxiety, quote from Health Canada. But I can watch the TV and it'll say you're going to be cured of everything under the sun from this drug, and you're frolicking in the tulips. But then I guess in some other frequency, they're saying you could have bleeding out the butt, your eyes are going to fall out, you're probably going to die, and everybody runs to go get on this drug. But I can't say harmonizes stress and anxiety because that's making a claim. And so that's my soapbox, and I just don't like when people tell me you can't do something, because then it's like, get out of my way and watch, I will do it. And so that's the personality that I came in with. And of course I didn't like my earth suit. And I was always comparing myself to other girls when I was 17, 18, 20. Oh, she's so pretty. Oh, that's a cute skirt. Oh, she's got a nice butt. Oh, she's got nice legs. Oh, her eyes are beautiful. And I'm at 54 now. I don't want to be anybody else. I love me. And that's what I'm trying to get people to realize, is you need the most important relationship is with yourself and loving yourself. And until you do that, the quality of life's just not there.
Yeah, it's that hopelessness that comes from approval, and that need to have everyone else approve of you being whole. Yet when you find that, when you return to yourself, when you return to your knowing, you're not in lack of. There's nothing that it's not a dollar amount. It's not an object. It's not a relationship. It's not a place, person, or thing. It's just now. And when that's that Death Star sweet spot where Luke's coming down to shoot it right in the center point, boom, and that's where you get the magic. You're right there, right now, and that's so important.
Yeah.
It's so important that people be able to experience that. I was on a podcast just before you, and I was having this conversation, and this particular guy was an advisor to Obama for 8 years or something. He's a spiritual pastor, and he like, after he finished that, he was like, what am I doing? What happened to me as a young boy, just inspired by the church, wanting to become this pastor and spread the word of God and all this kind of good stuff? And then I ended up doing this. How I got here, it's like a blur. And then I'm sitting here in New York City at some fancy restaurant with my $2,000 suit on, in some fine dining, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm seeing a reflection of myself. I'm like, there's a tear pouring down my eye, and I'm like, what am I doing? And that's really where he had the epiphany. He said, I'm done. He lost his way. He lost his way. He removed himself from connection with what he calls God, and became separated by this material obsession. And listen, I love all these new age spiritual people that get into, I'm a manifester and you're going to manifest this and do that. That's fantastic, because guess what? The universe doesn't have a moral compass. I got news for you. A lot of people tend to go, oh, well, I've got to sell my shirt off my back, and God, now I'm here. Within Taoism, we call this, when you act in virtue, you have none whatsoever. The need to think about this processes is the very absence of it. So when you're in servitude, that selflessness, that Death Star Wuji moment where you access the mother, is you don't think, you just do. It's like Yoda. There is no try, only do. Yeah. You go and you do it. It's like someone needs help, you give them help. You reach out, you help someone get back up if they're fallen down, or whatever that is. There's that, as my dear friend James Tooney would say, immaculate conception. I don't know what he wants to say. I had an interesting conversation because he integrated Catholicism.
I listened to that one. Yeah, I listened to that one too. Yeah.
No, we just did a part 2, so we're going deep on all this stuff. But the bottom line is, there's this weird sort of like absence that takes place, and when you find it, you're in lack of nothing. You're just the present moment. Like, honestly, I have 6 beautiful children and a beautiful wife, but the reality is I would be happy with the Tao Te Ching and just aimlessly walking around the world helping people remember who they are. And it's not about, how much can you acquire or how little. It just is. It's like, my goodness, there is no end to potential and possibility, and to pierce the veil of this reality, it starts with imagination. That's the seed. And once you get there, and then you have to be able to measure the creation of what it is that you're creating a clear path in, by using the energetic potential, because you are being subject to this polarizing duality. So what better way than to tune yourself to what is possible by doing that, and then removing that veil of, oh, well, everything's slower because we're in a 3D, and understand that sorry, I'm not buying it, because I've seen it. Things happen so many times that the potential, once you hit that resonance and you hold it, it's like, how do I put it? It's like, it starts with the light to wave to matter to particle, realize with your attention, intention, creating this incredible energy that has a vibration. The vibration has a frequency. That frequency met with a resonance, and oh yes, it will be yours. Oh yes. And so people go, wow, this is the manifesting handbook. Yes, it is. And what Gail has created, through her own admission, it's not her creation, but she's the vehicle that's bringing it to this space, that it's realized. It's helping people remember. It's giving people the opportunity to now sit in that resonance and acquire it, and then everything resets. I'm pretty sure, even though you don't want to publish these type of testaments, I'm sure you've probably got testaments of all types of crazy miracles that take place when these people use this incredible remembering tool. And, there is no end. I mean, I always just say I witness it. You want me to, I've witnessed the gangrenous tissue go back to pink in color in 40 minutes. I've seen bones fuse, seen tumors disappear. I'm not claiming, hang on, I'm not claiming that it's something. I mean,
well, who's to say? That's like we talked about a little bit earlier, is who gets to put a, like a limitation on you. I've had so many clients where they were told by the doctor, oh, your kid won't live to 20. And they're like, no. You don't put an expiration on my kid. Only God, universe, source gets to do that. You don't get to do that. And there's a lot of irresponsible healers that have told people, you're going to die. And then guess what? They died. But because they put that in their head and then they manifested it. So like you said, to me, it's not about money. Money's just energy. Everything is energy. So I'm in service. And there were times that I didn't even know how I was going to pay the bills. And I just stayed in service and the money was always there, time and time again since 2009. Because I resisted this. I had a really amazing career with over 6-figure salary. And I walked away from it to start the sound and light business, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I resisted it for so long that I ended up filing bankruptcy. I lost my house. I lost my dog. I lost my job. I literally was a bad country song. I just need to play it backwards and get it all back. And because I was stubborn and I'm like, no, I'm good at this corporate thing. I am really good at this. It serves my lifestyle. It serves my ego. It serves everything. And then my entire identity was stripped. And I was just kind of standing there naked, feeling like a big loser going, okay, God, if you want me to do this, you better figure it out. And ever since I said yes to that, everything that I've ever wanted is just there. I go, okay, I need to sell my center. And because the eggs kept telling me, you got to sell the center because you've got to support 150 owners and it's going to keep growing. And my boyfriend was like, you'll probably sell about 10 of these and that's it. I'm like, yeah, that's probably right. And so I said, I'm going to sell the center. And I said, okay, God, if you want someone to sell the center, somebody better walk in this door and say, are you selling the center? And I'm like, ha, ha, ha. That's never going to happen. It did. A couple walked in. Are you selling the center? We'd like to buy this. And are you kidding me right now? So everything just flows. Everything just works. And I don't even question it anymore. I always find the best parking spot. I'll call for a reservation for a restaurant and they're completely booked, but lo and behold, they'll have a spot open because I believe it and I know it and I conspire for myself, not against myself.
Yeah. Yep. This is what we call within Taoism, Wu Wei, effortless action, effortless effort. It's the flow, the flow that Bruce Lee brought to the forefront of people's consciousness back in the 70s. Flow like water, my friend. Oh, yeah, baby. Flow like water. And that's where you capture the attention, the potential. The possibilities are endless. And I mean, that's why when I teach people energetic potential, it's to defy this limitation of a constructed, manipulated view of reality. And that's the distortion, as a dear friend of mine, a Buddhist monk would say, Martin would say, it's the dukkha, the distortion that I'm looking for, the obstruction. That's it. It's a very tall order for someone to go, hang on, I just want you to know that your emotions are a reflection of your inner universe. And so that creates the distortion within your outer universe, which, if not regulated, you're going to have a very interesting experience. So understand that your emotions don't control you. You control your emotions. And then you start to align things. And that's like an entry-level sort of realization that everyone should come to. Everyone should realize that this is part of an expression of your journey within the human condition. And once you return to yourself, which reveals itself in that servitude, this selflessness, as it stands, I use an incantation when one of my teachers, the Jade Emperor. Power abundant in its giving you will receive. Unifying the body with the spirit with the energy. bringing heaven to earth, revealing all is one, one is all, exposing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. And so when people understand this and they feel the visceral realization that these are not words, this is magic. Yes, it's real. And when you embody it, you go, holy moly, that makes sense to me. Power abundant in its giving, I will receive. Unify my body with the spirit with the energy. Holy moly. And then my gift is my offering. The more you give, the more you receive. And so every student that always says, I just want to learn the levitation stuff and pick up hot coals and all this weird, wacky, paranormal stuff that is completely, the stuff I've been teaching people for 30 years, completely normal, part of the human potential once you reveal that you are not limited to this body. But then you just hold that resonance. What happens is part of that journey, you hit it and it makes you whole again. You go, oh, that's exciting. I don't need to do that anymore. And you're like, wow. Because every day is like a miracle, right? So for me, I wake up every day and it's just as exciting as the first day I inhaled on planet Earth. And it's just it's a miracle. It's a joy. It's a bliss. It's excitement. Most of my kids, all my kids have that sort of ability to just stay in that because dad's a big kid. And I love to just be in awe of the new day. And, part of Lao-Tzu was, he teaches people how that your recreation of reality happens every 9 seconds. And from that 9 seconds, it can go to 9 minutes, and every 9 minutes, and then every 9 hours. And you keep going in that creation. So you can just basically, if you attune to the resonance, your healing will happen within seconds, in less than seconds. If you go backwards, this is the realization. And so the potential is always there. And we use the number 9 as the most powerful, highest number for a Taoist. And so you understand that from conception to creation, how long does it take to form a human life? Oh, 9 months. Oh, whoa. And then when people go, hang on, you call the Tao the mother of all things? Damn straight. When you go back to the primordial mother, that's where the creation comes from, my dear friends, just so you know. And your own father is the reflection of that. That's a much deeper thing. We could have another podcast on that one alone. But to understand that polarizing, incredible gift, oh my goodness, there is no end.
But how would you explain to somebody, this is where I struggle. I love my life. I love every second. And I have bad seconds in my life. That's, it's normal. It's the human experience. But everything is magical and everything is easy for me. And I can talk to the trees. I can talk to the plants. I can talk to my horse and it just, people want to do the parlor tricks. They want to learn to levitate. They want to learn to, pick up fire. But then once you do it, it's done. And what benefit did you create for society by showing that you can do that? Where if you can bring life to something. So I went to a farmer's market and I bought a bonsai tree and I just really wanted it. It was cute. It had a little fisherman guy and it was in a little vase. It was a cute little thing. And the leaves just fell off, one after another. And my boyfriend said, babe, you're just going to need to get rid of that. It's dead. And I'm like, you know what? No, I am freaking magical. And I'm going to work with this plant. And I'll tell you, it's got flowers on it right now. It's got leaves back on it. Every leaf was gone. It was done. Everybody else would have thrown it in the trash. And I was like, I'm not giving up on this little tree. It wanted to come home with me. And it's got these magical white flowers on it. I don't know what I did. I just was talking to it. I was trying to tune into it. He told me to water it every other day. And it's one that you don't want it to ever have direct sunlight. And so I just started talking to it and it's got leaves all over and flowers. And my boyfriend was like, what the heck? This thing was dead. And so for me, that's magic. And, just enjoying the beauty and magic of nature every day. It's fun. So how do you explain to somebody, this is where you want to be in your life, not being able to pick up fire one time and, impress all your friends.
Well, it starts with self-realization. So, people start with that. I don't dismiss or discourage any seed, however it comes in what form, how you became a seeker. It's realizing that from that seed will blossom into a realization of the wholeness, and that wholeness, being whole, returning to that center point, you will be given this servitude, this desire, this default that you are just naturally. That is where it's effortless action, effortless effort. You don't have to think. I always tell people, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And so the feeling really comes down to it. So I won't dismiss or talk down about the idea of the magic, because it's very powerful. But what happens is people become obsessed with it, and that can be problematic for them. Listen, I'll teach you the tools on how to create that. And I mean, listen, some of the stuff that you get into, I had this conversation with this guy earlier today, and that was his turning point. My turning point was, sitting on a plane with someone who I am their advisor, their guru, and I'm flying to New York City to give them advice, spiritual. And I'm like being paid some obscene amount of money for a day of my time. And then I'm like, what am I doing? This is not servitude. This is not politics, because I had a lot of these people were very influential people that wanted me to do things like you end up in a Fortune 500 company, and I'm reading auras of their upper management, and the CEO is like, oh, just have a conversation with this guy. And some of the upper management, they're coming in looking for a conversation with the CEO, and they're like, what is this guy doing here? And I'm like, I'm just here to have a conversation, just ask you a few questions. What you're the CFO, but can we talk more about the embezzling and the other things that you have on your agenda? And it's like, what is going on? What's going on here? Now, that goes against a lot of ethics and a lot of other stuff. But people, when they get deep into it, you can read information very easily. And it's like that. I was losing my way. It's like, okay, great. I teach people how to do that. Great. If that's what excites you, to read an aura and to get deep into someone's nitty gritty, and reveal things about them that they don't want the world to know, well, that's kind of a shitty thing to do. But if they ask for it, sure. So whenever I do stuff like that, I always get people I go, listen, would you like a reading? And they're like, sure, magic man,
yeah.
Reading.
But I don't think you should have shame. I don't think you should have shame in taking a stupid amount of money for exchange of energy for your gift with somebody that can exchange the energy of money, because it's really like, that was probably $1 to him. If he paid you 100,000, it was probably like, it was just $1. And so that's what I try to get people to understand too. Sometimes I have people do some work for me and they go, oh, it's just $10, and I give them 20. Well, no, it's just 10. Well, that exchange of energy to me was worth $20. And I just tune into, what do I want to give you? And my boyfriend and I are constantly leaving big tips for people that say, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get through school. And, and they're just such kind people. They need a break. And I'm constantly getting notes on my phone. Did you mean to leave a 56% tip on your? Yeah, I did. One time I was like, did you mean to leave 110% tip? Yes, I did. And that's what that brings me joy, to be able to share what I've created and what I've manifested. And the other point too, you want to make a point on that one? Because I got another point on people's gifts.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that, it wasn't shame. It was just like, it was misspent time. Like, I can do that with 1,000 people online. I don't, the reason situations like that present themselves for me is so that I can go and help. I can walk down the street and in a day help 1,000 people, and that subsidizes my existence. I don't have a problem with that. If someone says, hey, look, I need this to happen. This is an event, a magical, mystical thing, and I need you to form a construct. And for example, magic is literally all little time sort of manifestation. So if it goes down to that and they want something to happen in their reality and they don't want to learn the skills themselves, they're like straight up, hey, let's go. I have no problems taking someone's blank check for that. And that's a habit that is not a big deal. It's about realizing your self-worth. I really think that's important. And you remember, people remember when you do that. I do the same thing. I'll be getting my groceries and the bill comes up and I give the checkout girl $200 and she literally dies. It's like, what? For me? I'm like, this is what this is for, to help you remember that. Don't forget, hope is real. Hope is real. And that, if this is the only thing that gets you that charge you and I are getting right now, woo, that is what this comes down. That's the tool that's why I'm given. And in my opinion, that's why it becomes that situation where if that's all it takes for you to remember, let's do this. And people miss sight of that.
I had a guy come over to my house yesterday because I had the sprinkler drip line that needed a little fixing. And so he came over, he's one of my neighbors, and he was talking about how he coaches 5th grade football. And he has a kid that is in 6th grade, but he's small. And, he wouldn't do really well on 6th grade football. So he petitioned to have him. This kid asked him, can I be on your team? And he said, yeah. So he's got the 6th grader. That's a little tiny kid compared to the other 5th graders. And of course the 6th graders. And I just thought, what a lovely gift that he gave to this kid, because he would have probably failed miserably in 6th grade football because he wouldn't have done well. And now he can be average at 5th grade football, but it can build his confidence. It can build who he is as a person. And that could have made all the change. Think about it. The life review that we have at the end of life. I believe we have this life review. And so look what he's going to contribute to society in a different way, because he got to be successful and not, taught this failure because he was small. And so I look at that and all the clients that I've served and all the things that the egg has done. Sure, I'm going to have some things in my life review where I've hurt people's feelings, or maybe I hurt somebody, not intentionally, but I can't wait for the life review for the people that have gotten pregnant that couldn't otherwise get pregnant. And then they're going to have kids, who are going to have kids, who are going to have kids, who are going to have kids. And so I just look at all this beautiful life review stuff. And I love to hear these stories of people like my neighbor helping somebody to find their confidence and just be different. So I was just really touched by the story he told me yesterday. And I just thought that was beautiful. And he said so many people just hate him. And, because he is this brass guy who just, says, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to be. And I just find him really lovely. I don't know how anybody can hate him.
Well, that's the knowing, right? It's like the frequencies of this space that we're in. There's only two things that take place. You're subject to duality. So you're going to either, the higher your resonance, there's only two things that will happen when you walk in a room. Someone's going to love you or hate you. It just is. It's like you either represent all the things that embodies their true identity as one, or you evoke, this resonant evokes all this garbage, and it's like, the emotions come to the top, and it's you. You're the reason why I don't feel good. It's you and your whatever it is making me upset and angry. And of course, there's no chance of making sense with someone like that. That's why showing them the energetic potential is where people go, whoa, okay, that is. Anything is possible when you see something change, where you can shift the way that you are feeling. It's not a sensation, it's a feeling that is knowing that you are right here. And when that happens and you can remove like the emotional content instantly, then you get sober, you get spiritually sober to realize that, oh my goodness, someone might call it overshadowed or being distracted by this very moment with just nonsense. I don't understand. I really couldn't put a finger on why I'm angry, but I'm just angry. And so let's just get down with the get down. Let's get on with this and tiptoe through the tulips, as Tiny Tim would say, and enjoy just being present. And that bliss, that wu wei, that effortless effort is not just a concept or a throwaway, sort of like a theory to the metaphysical realization of a Taoist path. No, it's real. And, as a dear friend of mine, E from Dharma Channel would say, being done by the Tao. And that means that you are in flow. And exactly the magical stuff that you talk about. And I always say this myself. It's like people go, well, how are you doing? Is everything all right? It's good to be me. It's real good to be
amen
me.
to that. Recently, recently, my sister, my little sister, my mom kicked me out of the house when I was 17 because she didn't like my boyfriend. Well, guess what I did? I went and lived with him. Duh. That was really silly of my mom. But I didn't realize that I shared a room with my sister because we only had a 2-bedroom house. We had 3 kids. My sister was kind of like a surprise. And I, as a self-absorbed 17-year-old, I never realized and never thought about what did I don't want to say what did I do, but how did it affect my sister who was 10 when I was there one day and gone the next? I didn't come back for 2 years. I didn't talk to my mom for 2 years. And I don't even remember if I talked to my sister. I don't remember. All I knew is my mom just threw me away. And I've got to now figure out how to live. I've got to figure out how to pay my bills. I got to figure out how to budget. I'm 17 years old. I'm just a kid. I wasn't thinking about my 10-year-old sister. 35 years later now, she's telling me, 36 years later, she brought this up to me on the phone last week. She said, you abandoned me when I was 10. And she's like, that's probably why I'm overweight. It's probably why I have PCOS. I'm like, okay, you know what? This is your journey. This has nothing to do with me. And so, like you're saying, people want to just blame and say, oh, it's your fault I'm angry. It's your fault that I'm this, or it's your fault that I'm that. But what a beautiful lesson for us to fix now. And I told her, I said, I deeply apologize that I wasn't thinking about my 10-year-old sister when I got kicked out of the house and I was 17. I'm sorry. I mean, I cried for a half a day because I felt the energy of that 10-year-old girl that was my sister. And that's what made me really cry. And I cried and I sobbed for her, for the 10-year-old her, not for the 47-year-old that she is today, but for that 10-year-old girl. That must have been horrible. Where did my sister go? And so, and I've cried for my child self, when I was 4 and when I was 7 and when I was 10 and when I was 14, just to tune into that little girl who felt abandoned or who felt, dirty because the priest molested her. So you have to do that, whatever people call it, shadow work. You have to go back and you have to heal all those little childhood things so that you can be childlike as an adult. And I think it's amazing, some of the work that I've done to heal the little child self and all the energies that were put onto her when, she didn't understand. And we have to forgive ourselves for that.
Yeah, I think that, giving people the opportunity with the egg is really so amazing, because that's really what happens. And so, some people can take a journey that could be a long one. I've had students that have literally been on a dark night of the soul for like 5 years. Hey, look, it happens. Yet in my opinion, the faster you access that resonance, you can unravel it. What goes in will come out. There will be evidence of what people consider trauma and all that kind of stuff, but it can also be instantly dissolved, and you can remember and heal from that. And so the value of that reveal comes from incredible situations where people can be able to use the egg to do exactly that. And so
I feel like it really connects them to that higher self. It connects them to that source that's just perfect, where you can have no ego and you can just be in total love with yourself. And people come out, they're in bliss and they're in love and people used to come in and tell me, oh, I love you. And it was uncomfortable for me at first because I'm like, I don't even know this person. They're telling me they love me. It's a little weird. But now, I mean, I can go anywhere. I can tell anybody that I love them. And it's true. It's genuine. It's like, I really do. I mean, we're all connected. We're all in this together. And I really do love people, genuinely love people.
Yeah. I mean, they are you. So, a lot of people, when they get involved in deeper, lower frequency entities, you probably heard this with Maya's conversation, but I mean, protection is only relevant if you're in fear. Fearlessness comes from truly remembering. Fearlessness comes from being whole. Fearlessness comes from returning. And so with that, you are subject to duality when you're emotional. If you're emotional, you're suggestible. And I'm not promoting the idea you have to remove that, because when you return, you are in tune with empathy of humanity at the highest level that you can even imagine. You can't even dream it. And it just becomes just this incredible, effortless, selfless experience, and more synchronicity, serendipity, all these things just keep flowing. It's like, you can't make this stuff up. It's like, holy moly,
Well, I do remember that conversation with you and Mara, and I do want to talk about that and get your feedback on this too, because I used to have these healers. Oh, you're under psychic attack. Oh, so-and-so's, tapped into your crown chakra and they're stealing information from you. And I fed that, and I made it more powerful because I fed it. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I used to be paralyzed in my bed. I'd feel people in my room. I'd feel people walking on my bed, or it felt like a little cat or a dog, which I didn't have at the time, walking on the bed. I don't deal with any of that anymore. I stay in a place of love and gratitude. I don't live in any fear. And it's interesting that I don't have to clear entities anymore. And I used to have to clear them all the time, but people were, oh, you have an entity. Oh, you have this. Oh, this is attached to you. Oh, this person. And I know that I was under psychic attack by one of my old mentors because he was jealous. He was part of the fall of Atlantis. And he was told, you have to bring this technology over to the planet Earth at this time and turn it over to the divine feminine. It just so happened to be me. But his ego was so big that, he couldn't do that. So because I've created this beautiful egg guardian community, and I've created this beautiful abundance for so many people, I get psychically attacked by him, but it doesn't even bother me. I feel it. It feels like a little fly just landed on me, and I'm like, goodbye, fly. And so it's just, I send him love and it's done.
Yeah. I mean, you are subject. Like, magic is all framed out by this dualistic experience. And so when you're creating and crafting things, whatever that might be, a manifestation of any kind, it's working in that framework. So the individual, I don't go specifically into casting magic for any other purpose other than for healing and higher resonance stuff. But it just so happens, if someone makes the mistake of, as you would put it, psychically attacking or attempting to in some way direct something in my direction, it always ends badly for them. It's like it's because of the framework of how it's constructed and how deep it is, how many thousands of years ago this imprinted lineage of information, energy, frequency that is surrounded inside and outside of me. These are sort of part of the construct. So if you buy into, the karmic model, you're going to reap the suffering that comes with that, because this is what happens. This is for me, I'm about being the present moment and raising your frequency to that resonating level that you can create miracles in your life and anyone else's, remembering. And so when you get these people that are really steeped into this dualistic perception, and they're controlled by their emotional state, and they don't realize that in of itself is a mind screw just there. And the idea that you have to go to a psychologist to have them tell you that you're okay or not okay is the very mind screw, and the development and construct of psychology in of itself is to control you, is to go, well, you need to go to this person to validate that you're okay. Like, if I had a penny for how many psychologists, therapists, light workers, energy workers, clinicians of all types of alternative healing, from functional medicine to chiropractic to Chinese doctors, they all end up on my doorstep with the same thing. They're absent of the fluidity and the resonance that's necessary for it to be realized. And so you cannot get past the energetic potential. That is it. That is, this whole reality is made up of that. That's it. And so when you realize that, and you get in and you embody something that's so deeply imprinted, like the egg, or something that I share with someone, it's a visceral experience that's second to none, and you'll realize you return home. And that's kind of part of it. I really love this. It's like a community. I have a community of, I created an app that helps people. I don't know whether you ever looked into it, but that's part of.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I have an app, and basically you hit play. You could be a janitor, a night worker, the next Dalai Lama, a light worker, whatever you are. You hit play and you experience. It's called an experience for a reason. You'll instantly feel like you've had 5 pina coladas, a full body massage, and 10 days in the Bahamas. And people go, how is that even possible? Because it's an imprinted resonance that comes from beyond this world. It returns you to perfection. And so it embodies sound, an audible visual experience, creating a kinesthetic response. And you just master yourself.
So I saw your video about that. Yeah, I saw your video on your homepage about that. So how does it actually work? Does it have imprinted frequencies in it and like mandala colors, or what is it? Tell me more about that.
When you hit play, it's all imprinted with a deeper sort of like ancient resonance that I just bring in. I'm just the tool. And you see and hear, there's a sequence of colors, there's a sequence of experienced like words that are transmitted and printed, and it's just a visceral experience, and it instantly resets you. And so the worst case scenario, I always tell people, it's like you could do 2 months of this app and then never do it again and walk away with a lifetime of change that is cheaper than one visit to a therapist. It's like it just happens instantly. So it's like
that's the key. Let's teach people how to fish instead of fishing for them. And that's what I don't want people to be dependent on the egg. I want people to use it until they achieve their level of wellness or spirituality they wish to achieve. And then maybe they come back because, God forbid, they got in a car accident and some trauma came up and their nervous system is jacked up. Go in, reboot it, and you're done again. And that sounds like what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, basically, for me, I don't want you to, even though people call it, faith is everything. It's the seed to your realized knowing. But blind faith can be problematic. So I'm not looking for blind faith. It's like a poop or get off the pot type of scenario where within the first experience that you have, you can now measure your ability to change the state you're in. So that means the first time you hit play, it's a 27-minute experience. Once you're done with that, I will give you what I call the Easter egg that you can measure your results instantly on the spot. So you can, hey, I'm able to shift the feeling, the state that I'm in, the psychological state I'm in within seconds. And that's really important. I think that a lot of people go, oh, do your meditation or do whatever. And, it's just it's really bad at this point. Like, follow me.
I can't meditate, to be, transparent. I can't meditate. It's not for me.
You're already doing it.
Right. But I don't sit in silence. But I'm constantly, I spend a lot of time out of body. And that's what happened too with the whole, what we talked about earlier, the kidnapping. I think that was the fork in the road. And even when I created the egg, my guide said, you need to decide if you're going to stay or go, because you're still spending too much time out of body. And that's when I started to be playing with horses. And when I was playing with the horses, I kept finding that the horses were tripping. I'd watch another rider ride the same horse, and I'd get on the horse and it's tripping and it's stumbling. And so I had an animal communicator come out, and she said, well, you're not in your body. The horse doesn't feel your presence, so the horse is tripping. And she made me walk on the sand and feel underneath my feet and the rocks. And I never felt that before for 20, 30 years of my life, because I had so much trauma, I just left my body. So I do know how to do that. And to me, it's just common sense, right? You could just leave and come back. But people don't know that. So I'm so glad you have this app. That sounds fascinating. I'm going to definitely check it out. I made a note.
Yeah. I mean, it gets you to the get down. And a lot of people start with that, and that's enough. For 99% of the population, they just want to realize that they're not controlled by their emotions. They don't want to be like a distorted sense of, holy moly, I'm anxious for 5 days straight. I haven't slept for 3. And I'm really at the edge of, I don't even what kind of, I guess it's a psychosis. That's what they're telling me. I'm Looney Tunes. No, you're just buying into what you're experiencing at this moment. When you realize you can have access to that energetic potential, all bets are off. Your ability to access it and move it off like an icon on a computer screen, once you're mastered that, and honestly, quite frankly, they instantly see a result. So they can start mastering that ability and go, all right, I can change the state I'm in now. Not like, oh, I got to hang out. No, I can literally shift it and I always say, do the Pepsi challenge on this bad boy. Go out there, get into go and get into a confrontation, get up in someone's face. You need to know that this works. This is not just some delusional thing. You need to understand. Now, I don't promote that. That was just a joke, just for everyone that's listening. But you need to be able to, it needs to be battle tested. It can't just be this fiction of your imagination.
How many people, totally. How many people go, oh my gosh, the full moon's coming, I'm not going to sleep. And then they don't sleep. I sleep through the full moon, the new moon, the Schumann frequencies, the solar flares. I sleep through it all. And because I don't buy into that it's going to affect my sleep patterns. I just don't. Right. But so many people do. It's like, what you put out there is you create your own reality. And I just think it's fascinating how many people need to learn that you can make your own reality.
Right. I mean, and that's my big thing. Be the master, keeper, creator of your reality. And people go, I like that. That sounds cool. Yeah, because that's the truth. And, when people want to really, word salad, you manipulate your mind by telling you that things it's not possible, or you look to someone with a white coat to give you the answers to your health and your well-being, mentally, emotionally, physically. That's problematic, in my opinion. I always tell people, if you come from psychology, neurology, biology, physiology, you're limited at best. It's like, this is a construct of one facet. Within Taoism, we call it the perfection. The perfection is the diamond. And I create dialogue with my teachers. I have over 171 of them. My channel, Lutsu, I don't know whether you've checked out any of that stuff. It's like, you have direct
what you said about that. So how do you tune into those masters? Do you call them in? How are you doing that?
Yeah, instantly. I'll instantly call them in, and they will be front and center. Well, for Lutsu, he never leaves me. It's like, if you are in my mind and you didn't realize that I was completely sober, I see them the same way I see you. I hear their voices the same way I hear your voice. And this is just a dialogue that I enjoy, because just from my creation as a young boy, my fascination and my imagination was everything that made me whole, that returned to who I am. I came from a one-parent family where, my father made the decision to, do the most horrible thing and cheat on my mother, and of course leave a 9-month-old baby. And you don't realize that being around a radical feminist in the 70s did not pollute my mind, but I was embodied with this yin energy, being around women all the time, and it helped me remember and evoke that deeper knowing. And so with me, the yin essence is very strong, even though I have a very strong potential yang, yin, that within Taoism we call it yin eyes, is the ability to access the spirit world. And that's the highest level of ascension for a Taoist seeker, is to channel direct source. And so, I channel my teachers at will. And listen, if I leave the doors open, 6 months ago, I had Dolores Cannon in my ear for like weeks. Had this other guy by the name of Art Bell, who's some weird UFO odd job.
Yep.
Yeah, so I had him in my ear. And strangely enough, I'm out here in Nevada. I'm not too far away from ground zero where he was like present and living. And that was another mind blow. It's like, whoa. And so then you tell me that you were murdered and you didn't die of natural causes. I was like, whoa, I'm not going there, my friend. I am not going there. And I mean, that's the first time I shared. It might have been the first or second time, but I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
You guys have some gripes. I get it. I'm more than happy to listen to you. Bruce Lee came in about a year ago. I did a recording with Bruce, and that was going over, basically his confession of how he got involved with the curse and all this other stuff with these entities that wanted to basically use him as a vehicle to siphon their energy. I was like, holy shit, you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. And he came in on his anniversary of his death. I was like, this is crazy, man. And then a lot of people
Well, that's what
go ahead.
Yeah, I had a lot of the ties with Elvis because I dated Elvis's stepbrother, who was with Elvis for 20 some years of his life. And, when Elvis came through to me and said, thank you for helping David, realize a dream that he had that he felt like he couldn't realize because I was his mentor, his father figure, his friend. And, really sweet energy, really, interesting how he didn't realize what he was doing when he was kind of talking about John Lennon. John Lennon's trying to, do this and, and he was going to our president saying, we got to stop the Beatles and John Lennon and this and that. And, I kind of feel like he contributed to the murder of John Lennon from what he was saying about who John Lennon was. And I don't think he realized that he was going to do that. But then when I channeled John Lennon, he was like, we had a soul contract for that. That was all good. I was like, okay, cool. It's fun to tune into these energies. I don't see them physically. I hear them. It usually comes into the right side. But it's just really interesting how you can tune into different things on the land or listening to plants. I've had the plants tell me that people say, oh, we're playing plant music. And the plants told me that's bull crap. We don't play in the key of C or the D sharp. We play in the key of Z. You guys don't even have the key of Z. How can anybody say this is the full expression of the plant? And so I just kind of stopped using, plant music because they told me, they said, this isn't really our true expression. You guys don't have the equipment to really communicate our true expression. So yeah, I just find it really fun and fascinating. But what you said about the doctors too, so many people give away their power. And I'm putting out a documentary that should come out this month. This is September 2024. It'll come out mid-September. And I want people to start taking back their power. And I want people to, if they go to a doctor, of course, if I broke my leg, which I did, years ago, I went to the doctor. But I want to go to a doctor and say, this is what I feel is going on. Can you test to see, if I'm right? Or let me, tell you what I think is going on, instead of letting the doctor be the director of their life. They're the director, but they're actually getting the doctor to be part of their team to help them with their healing. And so I want people in this documentary, I want them to realize we need more kindness. We are all one. We have to learn how to communicate with each other differently. When I say love to you, it's going to mean something different than what it means to me. When I say money to you, it's going to mean something different than what it means to me. So we need to learn how other people perceive the language. And maybe we need a whole different language to communicate with each other. And so then I also talk about, sound and light therapy a little bit, but it's not about the egg. It's just about people having more love, more kindness, more oneness, And we're going into this crazy election. 50% of the people are going to be upset. 50% are going to be happy. And how do we live in unity and oneness, whether our candidate wins or not? Like, who cares? We need to take our power back, and we need to take control back, and we don't need to be controlled. So many systems are screwed up and crashing, and we really need to figure this out. We're the United States of America, but it should be called the divided States of America lately.
Yeah, I mean, the onslaught, the spiritual war is real. The separation, the parasites that are implanted in your actual mind is the separation. It's like when people understand all thoughts of your mind are not yours, then they start to get a realization. It's like, well, whose are they then if they're not mine? Well, it just starts there. That's the curiosity that just starts. It's like just like Jade Emperor always tells me, and I remind people, when you know you're not of this body, what can harm you? Nothing. And that is a realization. That's a mind twister for many people. It's like, I don't want to die. That was the first thing my mother said, 20, 30 years ago when I shared that with her. She's like, I don't want to die. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just realizing that you've woken up to the truth, not this delusion. And, I think that what's most important, and I always go back to the energetic potential, is nourishing this vehicle so you can get the most out of your re-up. When you're here and you're having this experience, you want to lengthen the amount of time that you are remembering and not make it, a Steve Jobs special at the end of the tunnel going, oh, the light is so much brighter than I thought. That was kind of like his realization. And, it's kind of a funny thing. And then you have, it's funny you said Elvis. I was hanging out with Elvis a while back, and you wouldn't believe who he came in as a reincarnation of.
Who?
I'll give you the thought form. See if you can pick it up. Go ahead.
So that's when he came in, not when he left, and who came back. Right? You're saying when he came in. So for me. Now, if you what he is now, I'm going to ask you this question: where he is today? He's in a very, very, very well-known celebrity like musician, and he's operating that guy pretty well. And it's like it blew my mind when he shared that with me. I was like, it's wild. So I'm going to take a guess that he was a biblical character, disciple, somebody that was a spiritual healer, somebody. That's what I think he was. That's who he came in.
Yeah.
Am I close?
Well, let's go to just the celebrity identity of who's currently now. He's operating in someone else's body right now. Who do you think that is?
Okay, I don't watch the news or anything like that. So when you're saying somebody famous, no one comes to my mind because I really don't. And most of the music I listen to is 60s and 70s.
Oh, I gotta love those decades. 80s is definitely my favorite. But it blew my mind. So when he said this to me, I was like, nah. And then I went and I did some research on this person. And they were literally an impersonator of Elvis for the better part of from the second they were born till their teenage years. They were like impersonating Elvis, and now is probably one of the biggest celebrity musicians in the world. Who do you think that might be?
I'm trying to think. No one's coming into my mind. Like people are coming into my mind, but I feel silly saying it, so I'm not going to say it. But I'm not.
But isn't that where the information comes from? This part where you think it sounds silly?
Yeah, it's silly. Because he's not a musician who comes into my mind, but who came into my mind is Nicolas Cage because he loved Elvis so much. He married Priscilla. But no, it's not coming in.
Bruno Mars.
Oh, see, I don't even know who really that is.
Go, Joe, check him out. Instantly when I say that, you can feel the potential there. So
yes, totally.
You're like, hang on. You see, this is what I keep telling people. Once you start to tune yourself, you don't have to. You can be the lie detector of all lie detectors for your reality, because you know when something is contracting or expanding within you, whether it's bullshit or it's real. And when I say something, people go, holy shit, you're not full of shit. You're for real. And I'm like, yes. Yes. When I say I've witnessed miracles beyond miracles, yes. Do I still witness them on a daily basis? Yes. And they are 100% real, and they defy the logic of any, basically, corrupt, orchestrated corporate sort of like overlord using mind manipulation through the vehicle of the interweb and social media to control your very mind state.
Well, that's why there's some machines out there that I think are, like stealing data from people versus healing them, but they're promoting them as a healing, modality. And that's why, I didn't want to put a lot of electronics, and I've been complimented by, older healers that have been doing this for 40 or 50 years. They're in their 80s now. And they said, I love the simplicity of the egg. It's just a wooden structure. There's not a lot of electronics in there. There's not stuff going on in there where they feel like energetically they're being molested, for all better terms that I can think of. Yeah. Energetic. Energetic molestation.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's like potentially, I've been doing this a lot. You create the vortices. There's nothing more sobering than someone with their eyes open. And I'll go, oh yeah, I'm having a conversation with you. Yeah, there's 8 vortices in your house. There's one power center, and they all have their own energetic potential. And they're like, get the hell out of here. I get up and go and sample them for yourself right now. And they're like, they come back to the screen and sit down and go, holy shit, there's energetic, there's a vortices in my house right where you said it was. I'm like, you're welcome. That's great. Now you're identifying with the energetic potential. That's what's there. And so, when I imprint things, it's like I'll open up the mother in a vortices, and it has an effect. Like you can take, normally I'll infuse 18 like sort of stones, and then I create like a healing plate. Generally, sometimes I'll make it out of basically anything, really. And people will use that, put that on their property, whatever, and all of a sudden create life, just as you were doing with your own intention. Drop it on the soil that cannot be used, and all of a sudden you're able to grow things in this soil that was just polluted, or it wasn't capable of creating anything. And that's just the frequency. That's what we're talking about. And it's like, that is so tangible and real. And I mean, if people are questioning, I always say, okay, here's an example. Right now, whoever's listening to this, go out to your backyard, find a patch of grass, and pour the most angry moment that you can embody at this moment into that space. Do it for a day, and you'll watch the grass die before your very eyes.
Totally. That's Emoto's work, when he put on the water crystals, I hate you on the glass, and the crystals were all gnarly, but I love you on the glass, and the crystals were beautiful snowflake looking water molecules. So that's Emoto's work. Absolutely.
Right. It's 100% real. You have to experience it for yourself. And I always want people to be at their heightened level of sensory perception, and the energetic potential is always it. So when you're, for example, for someone to get the most energetic potential, they must refine within Taoism, it's the lung channel. So you understand this sort of like sadness, grief, loneliness, helplessness, this all resides within that channel, right? So the second you get a blasting, just all I do is help you remember or transmit it, the resonance, and then all of a sudden, whoa, hang on a second. I can't believe how much more sensitive I am to energetics, just the energy in of itself. And this is really important because a lot of people are numbing themselves. They don't realize they're doing that. And, that's where you just clear it out. And holy crap, I'm like ultra sensitive to all this stuff, as it should be. That's just once you regulate.
Well,
That's what.
we've numbed ourselves down to, like not feeling and just like not wanting to feel. And that's the thing. We have to feel it to heal it. Is that the saying? And so people used to come into my center and be like, oh, I have lung issues. I'm like, okay, what grief are you holding on to? What sadness are you holding? Oh, I got liver problems. Well, what anger are you holding on to? I've got, I'm living in fear because I'm going to lose my house and I've got kidney problems. Well, there you go. It's related. And they thought I was psychic, but I just know the body and the emotions that are held in certain organs because I don't feel psychic. But after seeing about 20,000 clients, there's patterns and there's habits that the human being has. And so you can just say, hey, this is what's going on. And they think you're magical and, oh, everything's great. But it's just the habits and patterns of the human species. It's just there.
Yeah. And that's all got to do with the emotional content that is a part of the distraction, but it's also part of, the healing. But the faster you get to the get down and you realize this and you're not completely in the weeds, which a lot of people will stay there. That's just what I like it. How can you say that? You like it. You just need to be honest with yourself to be able to look at them and go, yes, I enjoy this. No, I'm not. I'm not a victim. I'm not in pain. I'm not this. I'm not that. No. Yeah. You like it. How dare you say that to me? Listen, when you come to that realization and come back, I'm more than happy to get you where you need to go. But right now, this is something that you're enjoying the suffering. You're enjoying the pain. You like the sadness, the helplessness, the hopelessness, the disempowering moment of whatever it is that you're going through. I need this. I am a victim. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the part where, what? And, when you do, for me, when I teach someone to do psychic readings, you look at their energy potential and their aura, right? And so each energy center has an emotion of virtue, and it's either excessive or deficient. You balance that out. So when I do a reading on someone, all I'm doing is just reading the information in their field. I'm not giving them, and I'm not asking them for them to validate that I'm the next coming of Jesus or I'm some magical, mystical psychic. It's just there. And then at first it's like, oh, well, you're not sitting in the lotus position and, you're not singing Kumbaya and bringing your angels and all that kind of stuff because you master this stuff and it becomes instantaneous. You don't have to. That's part of the ritual, and I think it's important. But you get to a certain point where this is your reality. This is how you breathe. You breathe and live this now moment. And whenever I offer that, I always go, look, I'm going to start from the bottom. And within Taoism, we call them dantians, energy field. And it's normally for someone who's a Hindu, they would call it a transpersonal point. We just call it energy center 1. And then we go to what they call the root chakra within, Hindu practices. And then I always give people that out moment. I'll start with the, parameters. Do people have boundaries or not? Let's take a closer look at what you're dealing with here. And then by the time we get to the sexual energy, they're like, whoa, we're good. This shit is real. Yes, it is. It's very real, and that's completely okay. But that way you don't get too deep into their stuff where they're like, I said I wanted this, now I don't, and I hate you. Because most people tend to go, I don't want anyone to know that. Yeah. No one needs to know that. And the fact that that's really not okay. And people have boundaries. What people need to understand is the delusional part is, hey, can someone enter into your field if you're subject to emotional content? 100%. If you don't believe it, this comes down to the belief of knowing. Absolutely not. It's part of the construct. You're the master keeper creator of it. So if you're going to be the biggest downfall of any megalomaniac psychopath that's ever created some type of heinous crime on humanity over the last 100 years, it always comes down to their downfall. How is it possible? They've gone out and they've murdered millions of people. Why? How did they end up falling? As they started believing their own shit. They stopped believing their own shit. And so when you stop believing, you get back into the karmic model. And so fear and all these other emotions will draw you into your own unraveling. And so you need to put it all into perspective, and you need to regulate it. You need to make it so you really are in that now moment, and you're able to just have an effortless, fluid experience within your reality, which is part of the purpose of being human, is to enjoy that, not to I mean, people go, well, to be virtuous, I must get rid of this. Listen, I've got a personality. I like bonbons. I like riding my side-by-side in the desert 100 miles an hour, and I enjoy Netflix. Maybe not so much Netflix anymore. But guess what? That has nothing to do with me being able to access this now moment. But a lot of people are like, I have to just squash that. I've got to destroy that. I've got to, as you said, manipulate and control something. That's the biggest mistake, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I think we need to be vulnerable with each other, and we shouldn't be embarrassed that, like I was so ashamed that the priest molested me. Even when I told my parents, they're like, you're lying. There's no way that Father Brennan did that. Well, now we know, he's passed away now, but we know he molested at least 160 girls and one boy. We don't know why. One boy that we found. I was embarrassed, and, it wasn't my fault, but I walked away from God at that point, and I just think that I don't want to be a victim. I want to heal it. I want to move on from it. And I want to be this magical person that can manifest. And I just think that some people just don't want to be vulnerable for some reason, that they think that it's embarrassing to tell somebody what happened to them, or maybe people are going to say, oh, you're stupid. That shouldn't have happened to you. If you would have done this, this, and this, it wouldn't have happened to you. And nobody wants to hear that. No one wants to hear, I told you so, or, that was your fault. So you have to know yourself. You have to love yourself, and then you can be vulnerable and heal from that stuff. Because what you suppress just manifests into disease, and you know that.
Yeah, anything that transmutes to that deep level will materialize in a physical ailment.
Yeah,
and that's just I'm just speaking on the foundation of the fundamentals of alternative healing in Chinese medicine, which was basically created. All traditional Chinese medicine, which is kind of bastardized, really the version of that, was generated from one of my teachers that I love learning from, the Yellow Emperor, and his mentoring of being mentored by the Jade Emperor and their relationship with the universe. So the Yellow Emperor was pinned to the earth for 18 days and nights, magnetized to the earth, downloading the Chinese culture as you know it today. And from that stemmed the seed of Taoist alchemy and the inner workings of that. And from that Taoist alchemy, they created a very mild version, Chinese medicine. And so, the real power comes from understanding the energetic potential and being able to play with the substance, because it's happening all the time. If I go and tell you to go F yourself, that's substance, and you're going to either receive that as a compliment, or you're going to tell me to F myself. There's potential, right? Instant potential. And people are like, oh, well, that's not energy. Oh, damn straight it is. Instant.
How about the story that you told about the police officer that pulled you guys over? That was, yeah. It's all like energy, and you transmuted that and, made it something else. And it made me laugh because I was driving to go see, who Norm Shealy is?
No, I'm not too familiar with.
Yeah, he was like a medical doctor that realized how much, he was brainwashed, so he started doing alternative stuff, but he just passed away in his 90s. But he was a past life regressor. And so I flew into Missouri to see him. And I got pulled over by a cop. Their speed limits are so silly. It's like 55, 45, 35, 40, 50, 65, 50. I'm like, I'm just going one speed and that's it. And that's what I told myself. Well, the cop pulls me over. And I said, you know what? I know I was speeding. These speed limits are just too hard to follow, so I just was going one speed. Well, he's going to give me a ticket. I go, you know what? Just give me the ticket and let me go. I'm going to see this doctor. And he goes, what did you say? I said, just give me the ticket. Like, I'm guilty. He got so upset because I was telling him what to do. He didn't give me a ticket. Go ahead, just give me the ticket. He's like, you don't get to tell me what to do. I'm like, come on, I gotta go. Just give me the ticket. And he's like, no, I'm not giving you the ticket. It was reverse psychology. I didn't even know I was doing, but it was funny. When I heard your story, I just laughed, and that brought that up for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you get really masterful at this stuff, it's literally you're operating in every dimension at once. That's something that can be sort of like questioned by a physicist. Sometimes I don't even like talking like that. Let's just call it you're operating in all these frequencies at once, and you have the opportunity to pick and choose. And so this happens all the time with me, where you're like, holy moly, this is not going to end well. And I literally will get into confrontations with authority because I can't stand authority, any type of authority. And so my wife is like, oh my goodness, you're not the priest right now. Oh, I am. It's all energy. And like, you watch it just unravel, and you can't understand how it's possible, because on face value, this guy is losing his shit. He is not in control. Oh, I'm 100%. That's the distraction for you. It's like you're entertained by this. I'm like, look over here, and I'm over here. Look over here, and that's part of spirit projection, and that's part of like a mastery. And everyone has the ability and potential to do that. It's just about mastering it yourself. And like you just had a self-realization of what that was like. That potential was there already. You had something else brewing that you weren't even conscious about, but because of your resonance and your frequency, it dissolved. It literally dissolved before your very eyes. You're like, you can't make this stuff
Literally was walking away as I was rolling the window up. I heard him talking to himself. He's like, I've given away 35 tickets today. I don't know why I didn't give her a ticket. He was walking back to his motorcycle and talking to himself. And I just laughed and moved on. But I realized how I transmuted that. And, some people would call it manipulation, but it wasn't that intention. I really just wanted to get done and move on. I didn't feel like trying to defend myself. Give me the ticket.
Right. But I mean, manipulation is what? For me, if I bring a resonance and it manipulates you to return to who you are, I'm okay with that. You can call that unethical. You can call it whatever you want. But if you're returning to who you are and you feel whole, and all of a sudden you're smiling, within, you have a more potential of promise, hope of something better than what was so low resonance, so frequency that brought you to that point, then guess what? I'm not ethical. There you go. Oh,
well, and it's the same thing about communication. My dad told my grandmother that I was a manipulator when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, because I called my dad. They were out for New Year's Eve, and I said, Grandma's not feeling well, because I asked her how she was doing. She said, I don't feel well. So I called my parents, and they came home. I'm in my bedroom. They're in the kitchen. So she's such a manipulator. She's such a liar. So the word manipulation to me brings back that trauma. So just like we were talking about communication, a word means means something different to everybody based on their life experiences. I don't think manipulation is bad. I think it can be used for good and it can be used for bad, just like anything. And so that's where when someone says manipulation, that's the first thing that pops into is that trauma that obviously still needs to be released because it's still coming up that way.
Yeah. I mean,
triggers are treasures.
Yeah, it literally is. I mean, when you mention that priest, though, you've 100% healed from that. That's a whole deal. Even though you may not even be through your own admission, you may not. You are whole. That whole priest thing.
Yeah,
is
totally.
Like,
no,
it's like
that was a soul contract.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful to him for that, because I've been able to help so many other people who said that they were the victim because of a rape or a molestation or something. And I've been able to help them because it's not my story anymore. It's completely healed. And I'm actually grateful for the experience. Yeah. It's made me who I was, who I am.
Well, I mean, and this is where people come to I do have a few issues personality wise when people get to addiction, because it becomes problematic. It's like, okay, so today everyone wants to be a psychonaut. They want to just, take mushrooms, ayahuasca, whatever. That's fantastic, but it's always temporary. You get a little taste of the spiritual dragon, and then you keep searching. And that's where you end up on my doorstep, and I'll teach you how to give yourself a DMT experience for 3 days straight. That's okay, whatever you want. But what happens is there's this seed, and I'm noticing this, right? All of a sudden, through the history of time, the idea of wine and ritual within some type of spiritual practice has been going on for as long as you can remember. Yet now we need you to bring your attention to how bad it is, how detrimental that is. And this is where people fall into a trap. My name is John Smith. I'm an alcoholic. My name is John Smith. I'm a chronic smoker. My name is John Smith. I'm a crack meth addict. These are all things that you have chosen, just like you mentioned within your soul contract, have chosen to use as potential tools. And that when they're no longer useful, you'll stop using them. And so people look, when I say that to someone, they go, whoa, hang on a second. What happened to all that guilt that I had, that I was just an abuser and I was some little nothing that is just this victim that wants to punish myself and I'm just a horrible person? The second you brought that to my attention, it was gone, because that's all it is. You're none of the above, but you're all of the above. That comes back to that contracting and expanding. So it's like, okay, so look at the potential and see what it has given you. And when it's of no value, move to the next thing. That's it. So if you've decided to hand over your power to a bottle, to a drug, to something else, then of course you're only as strong as that drug, that bottle, that potion, whatever it is. And then it's taken away from you when someone has told you, or your body has told you, you got to stop. This is not working. And that's the potential. It's like I've come across gurus that smoke a bag of weed every day. They're 102 years old and can do supernatural things that you've never seen before. And they smoke weed all day long. Do I understand it? Not for me. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't work for me. And then, I come from a childhood where most of my friends were, exposed to drugs and alcohol. Specifically, and when I was a child, it was like ecstasy and LSD. And quite frankly, there was a voice in my head going, no, you don't, no. And but I'd hang around and I'd be around them and they'd be like, dude, you're a buzzkill. You won't smoke the weed. You won't take the drugs. But, I got obsessed with bodybuilding when I was a child. So it was like I was into bodybuilding and this physical. And they're like, we're childhood friends. I'm 14 years old. I'm hanging out in the room while you guys are getting wasted because your parents are away for the weekend. But you're killing my will to live, bro. Either pick up a bottle or smoke a joint or something. You cannot just be here. And I'm like, wow, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to subject myself to you diminishing my value as a friend and telling me that I can't be here. I'm your friend. I have been since I was a young boy. And of course, what happened was, by the time my early 20s, at least a dozen of my friends had committed suicide.
Yeah.
From taking LSD on a daily basis. Like there was a point where they were like taking what they used to call them like clear pain or something, like window pain or something, with these little tabs, and they would literally take it before they got to school, and they'd spend their whole day at school just out of their mind, and and they all got that message. It's time to leave. And so you want to be hijacked with a parasite. That's a real clear one. And the evidence was they're no longer here in physical form. But these are the things that you need to be aware of. The faster you come to an awareness, a spiritual consciousness, an out-of-body experience, something that brings you this paranormal curiosity. It's like, oh, something supernatural, superhuman. I mean, that's exciting. Potential, anything. Yeah. And that's where people need to start there and then realize that, part of transmuting things was part of one of the things of being a priest was I had to transmute alcohol from a bottle and put it into another bottle, and then you had to drink the bottle that was sealed with the alcohol, and if it was not removed, you're done.
I've heard you talk about this. Yeah.
It's completely, it's another day in the office. So you can
Well, I
transmute
feel like, yeah, the egg to me is a natural high, and I've never been attracted to. I tried pot, it didn't resonate with it. I had an alcoholic father, so I drank quite a bit when I was probably 16, 17, 18, and I was like, this is not the way to live life. I'm not going to go down the path that my dad did. And then I married an alcoholic, and then I divorced him because it was the wrong path. And even my mom said, well, if you would have just drank with him, you could have saved your marriage. And I'm thinking, did you just say that to me? She's like, that's what I did. I just drank with your dad. And, so she was married to, and so I never really resonated with that. But I hear so many people tell me now, like, oh, going in the egg is like an ayahuasca trip, or it's like, smoking marijuana. I'm like, that's great. It's more of a natural high because our bodies are vibrational beings of light. So that sound and light therapy, I think, really elevates them to a natural high. And that's where I like to live, is more that natural high. So I'm with you. I never really dabbled. I never did LSD, never did cocaine, never did, I just didn't, my friend said, you're a jock because you play softball, but why do you hang out with the burnouts? I'm like, do I have to choose? Do I have to be a burnout to hang out with them? I like them. They're fun. Yeah. They're nice. Yeah. And, the jocks were not very fun. They were kind of egotistical. And so I like the burnouts because they were more fun. But they're like, are you a jock or a burnout? Do I have to pick?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it, is like just being able to enjoy the present moment. I mean, that simplicity. You had keys to the city throughout your whole life, and the more and more you became aware of that potential, and then bringing this incredible gift into this realm. And it's like, I would be interested to hear from the people that use it, how many of them pass out and literally go to sleep?
Yeah, a lot.
Right. And
they get out, it's like Shavasana on steroids, and then they just go into this place of meditation so quickly. And sometimes I think they have to get out of their own way to heal, so they just pass out.
Yeah, well, it's the resonance. So this is a similar thing that happens with my app. What happens is, while you're regulating, what happens? And a lot of people go, hang on, I'm just starting to watch you. Is it good? I passed out. I was like, listen, you've got a lot of turbulence going on there, and you're starting to regulate. So you go from one extreme to another. It'll either be high gamma or epsilon. You're going, dude. And it's still creative. It's all creative, all of it. And so, but that's it. They're like, well, did it do it? Well, if I'm not conscious, then does it mean that it's working? I'm like, my goodness. Yeah. When was the last time you had a good night's sleep? And they're like, it's been years. Okay. Well, yeah, okay, great. But this is what happens with your egg. I imagine, that there was a lot of people that just get so regulated, and you're moving this energy through them, and they're expanding, that will be an effect where, you're just, it's like, boom, gone. Hasta la vista.
They do. And then they tell me, one young kid came in, he's like, give me my phone. And I was like, why? He goes, because it was only 5 minutes. There's no way that was 50 minutes. And he looked at his phone. He goes, oh, sorry. He goes, it just felt like it was 5 minutes. I passed out, and then you woke me up. And, because we go through this period of 40 minutes of music, 10 minutes of silence. And then I ring a little bell or whatever, so they know I'm going to open the door. And so that's what he meant by I woke him up. I said, yeah, it was 50 minutes. I didn't cheat you.
Yeah. And the refresh. And part of that is, how do you know all this is working? I give people the clearest way to determine, as you're developing your sensory perception, your clairsenses, all these type of skills, the clearest way to determine whether any of this is working is, how do you feel at the end of your day?
Yeah.
And people are like, well, before I started this, I was exhausted, but now I look forward to waking up. I look forward to going to sleep, and I enjoy my day. I'm no longer counting the minutes. I'm not counting the hours. I'm not begging for Friday. I'm not dreading Monday. I'm just being. And we know things are cooking. And that's where, you know, I end up being that master void of time and space where poof, all of a sudden, you know, great conversation, incredible beings turn into a couple of hours of mind-blowing awareness and epiphanies from just the information that we're sharing with the audience. Yeah. Yeah. So I will put all your social media under this podcast, and I'll make sure I want all the students, disciples, 126ers. That's where you get the 126 from. 126, which
is 9. It's a 9.
Yeah, it's a 9. 126s and subscribers to go out and check out Gail's incredible offering. Look deeper into all the things that she's sharing and helping people remember who they are throughout the world with this incredible device of just insight that is not from this world, because it helps people return. And that's the whole point of this whole journey from anyone that gives you insight to the human condition, is to realize that it's not a condition at all. It's beautiful. It's perfect. But you have to return to that through an experience. And with that said, my dear friend, I'm going to ask you one last question. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Oh, boy. I would say that it's about being humble, critically thinking, not just following the pack, and being open to receive, to have balance, and to just be. Beautiful.
Beautiful. And that's all we need, is the now moment. And realizing just being is, that's the highest level of ascension for a Taoist, is just being present. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, my dear friend. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.